We're talking with Aaron and Luke of Hodgdon Powders, and I asked them, what's the ideal load for a 6.5 Creedmoor for hunting purposes? You'll be surprised what they say. Welcome in, Gun Talk Hunt fans. I'm your host, KJ, and today we got a good one. But first, Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by Hodgdon, the gunpowder people. The Brownells, serious about firearms since 1939. Silencer Central, silence delivered. Benelli, dominate the skies. And Smith & Wesson, we thank you for your support, fine folks. Today, you know what? Since the show's brought to you by Hodgdon, we're going to talk all about hunting powders and the stuff that you guys love out there. If you reload, you know Hodgdon Powder, and you got to head over HodgdonReloading.com, go to their reloading data center because it's all there. But today we're joined by Aaron and Luke over at Hodgdon. Welcome in, guys.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So let's get the niceties out of the way. Welcome in, all that good stuff. But let's start out with Aaron. Aaron, give us a little bit of your background and what you do at Hodgdon, so the fine folks over the listening airwaves and on our socials can have an idea who Aaron is.
Sure. My name is Aaron Oelger. I work in sales and marketing and strategic planning and wear a couple of other hats here at Hodgdon Gunpowder. So I've been here it'll be 6 years in January. I've been in the industry for about 18 years and worked in a couple of different roles in the industry, but have been here at Hodgdon for 6. And absolutely love this job, love working for this company, have probably one of the best jobs in the industry, and hope I get to do it for a while longer. It's a great place to work, and Hodgdon's as a family, I can't think of a better family that I'd want to work for in the industry. So all the way around, it's a great place to be.
They are fine individuals for sure. Luke, how about you? Give us a little background information.
Like Aaron said, this is kind of a dream come true. And I guess my background, grew up as a hunter, started reloading when I was 12 and started shooting competitions. After I moved to the Kansas City area, got away from the family farm. And after doing that for a few years, kind of found a new path here, and the family here has been great. So, okay, hold on a second. Who got you into reloading at age 12? My dad bought me a Hornady 366 12 gauge progressive press when I was 12, and all the goodies to go along with it. And I set it up in my bedroom, and it was the best Christmas present I have ever had.
I would say so. So when you had like friends come over, it'd be like, hey, look what I got as a 12-year-old.
It was a pretty neat deal that not many people understood. But yes, it was.
I'm sure not many people understand it, but I can guarantee you, I probably know what Hodgdon powders. I mean, you were probably using. You're probably using some IMR and all the good stuff, right?
Clay's was the first powder.
Really?
It was pretty new on the scene at that time.
Yeah.
And it was all the magazines. And the ads were great and never had a reason to look back.
Well, this is Gun Talk Hunt. So I'm going to share a quick story. And these guys have not heard this story. I'm hunting with a 6.5 Creedmoor. I have a lot of trust in that round. And what I'd like to get into is I'd like to talk a little bit about reloading for your 6.5 Creedmoor and different powders that you might consider, and how, different powders shape the load. But I'm going to share a hunting story with you. So it's been a rough season for me, Aaron, Luke. It's been a rough season. Elk season, didn't tag out, didn't see an elk, didn't hear an elk. Wyoming antelope season, I went out. Everyone in the group tagged out except me, but that was kind of a personal choice and a decision that I had to make. So 8 tag in Colorado, 8 tag in Wyoming. Youth season comes along and we see 2 deer, and my boys didn't get them. Well, Oklahoma rifle season starts, so I'm going to take a week off, Thanksgiving, all this good stuff. I get out there first morning. My youngest, 7 years old, shoots one from my lap. Couldn't be more excited. Dropped it immediately. Awesome. And we're all shooting the same gun. So 6.5 Creedmoor, and shooting 143 grain ELDX. Dropped the deer immediately, made a great shot. Next morning up, my oldest, he drops it. He drops his deer. Perfect heart shot. He actually got 2 trophies out of the deal. He got a beautiful 9-point buck, and he got a feeder timer. My feeder timer. It was a 1 in a million shot. I mean, 1 in a million. So after he shot his, the next day I had another buddy hunting out there, and he went in and he harvested a buck. So I was just going to fill the feeder up. And I went over and I was like, something's not right. I was like, okay, let's, test it out. And it wouldn't, the relay from the timer to the, dispenser. Yeah. The motor, it wasn't picking up. And I was like, and I was like, oh my gosh, someone shot my feeder. And I remember when my boy hit, one tradition that we have started this year that I absolutely love, and I encourage everybody to start it. We say a quick prayer, and then we say the 4 rules of gun safety before we head out. So everyone knows, like, gun safety. He lets the deer walk out past the feeder because he knows what's beyond his target. He shoots a deer. It goes through and I guess hits a rib bone off his right side, deflects and perfectly pierces the feeder timer.
Wow.
Unbelievable shot. Guys, I told him, I was like, you couldn't do that if you tried. So anyway, it was pretty entertaining. But no, it's the 6.5 Creedmoor. I love it. And we've got in the office right now, just a heads up for everybody, we're going to do some Hodgdon pieces, and I'm getting into reloading now. I see the value in it, and Hodgdon Powders is where I'm starting, and I'm going to start with a 6.5 Creedmoor. So with that being said, Aaron, Luke, guide me. What do I need to know about reloading the 6.5 Creedmoor?
I'll let you take it.
Oh, they look at each other. That's the worst, when they both look at each other and go, well, there's a lot of places we can start.
This is a good round to start with. It's pretty forgiving. It's kind of a round that just seems to shoot well, no matter what you really throw at it. It doesn't seem to be finicky. Mm-hmm. So traditionally, when the round came out, H4350 just kind of became the go-to powder for the cartridge. It was a perfect fit. There's a lot of powders that will work fine. The IMR 4350, the Accurate 4350, even some of the faster burn speeds with lighter bullets like Barget with the 120 to 130 class bullets, that works really well. Yeah. It especially works well in gas guns.
Oh, really?
So if you have a gasser, the AR-10 platform, you might consider IMR 4064, Barget, something in that burn speed. Okay. Winchester Stayball 6.5 has really become a great powder for that round. It's what I'm loading and shooting in mine. Okay. It added a considerable amount of velocity to the round. It can pick up about 100 feet per second over what 4350 was giving it. Okay. So it's a very good powder. Fits that cartridge very nice. So.
What do they need to know? I guess, Aaron, I'll kind of flip this over to you maybe. What do they need to know about? I mean, because gunpowder is not all created equal. And I think we kind of understand that. But when you talk about your faster burn rates, like what length of barrels are you guys looking at when talking about this? Because mine that I'm going to try to develop this load for is for a SIG Cross. So it's a shorter gun, shorter barrel. And I want to get the best performance out of it. Like kind of start steering me.
Okay. It's a common misconception that a faster burn speed of powder is needed for a shorter barrel. That necessarily is not true. Mm-hmm. So the powder that gives you the most velocity in a 24-inch barrel is also going to give you the most velocity in those shorter barrels. Okay. So
that's definitely a good direction to go for sure.
And I would say, so you mentioned earlier the HodgdonReloading.com. That's a great resource to actually start out. I'm probably to the age that I don't play around with a lot of new calibers necessarily. I've kind of been loading what I load, and that's what I load because my dad loaded it that way, right? So that's kind of traditionally what I've done. I did just have a new PRS gun built in 6 Creedmoor, so I'm trying to figure all that out. And, so we have a couple of resources out there in our HodgdonReloading.com. That's going to have all the data that we've shot. isn't available on the internet for free. So that's a great resource. We publish an annual manual every year, and we're going to feature new calibers in there. So several years ago, we did the 6.5 Creedmoor. We did the 6 Creedmoor several years ago as well. That's the data resource that I'm using right now as I develop my load. So I looked at several different powders. In that annual manual, you're going to find a burn rate chart. So it's going to be able, you can compare the different burn rates for different powders and figure out, what powders are in the range that I need to be looking at. And then you can kind of help that chart will help you narrow down your decision. So, for me, I'm starting out with a Stayball 6.5. It is, that's a good powder for me. Margit, I'll play around with that as well. But, I'm shooting something a little bit different. Traditionally, I shoot 270, 30-06. I'm having a 300 Win Mag built right now. Playing around with 338 Win Mag. So, I'm pretty traditional. When you think about traditional hunting calibers, I'm the guy. I'm not one to kind of jump on a new caliber, but there's a lot of really cool stuff out there right now.
Yeah, there really is. And what's beautiful about the Hodgdon Reloading Data Center is that it's a 4-step process. You select your cartridge, then the bullet weight, the manufacturer, whether it's Hodgdon IMR or Winchester, and then it spits out your powder, what you need to look at.
Yeah.
And you guys are able to, on Hodgdon Reloading, able to compare and contrast powders, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be nice to be able to go, okay, I've got a H4350 and a 4831. How do those compare? And you can size up all the data,
Correct.
Comparative analysis.
Correct.
So what advice would you give me in, because I hear a lot of guys going, oh yeah, I'm playing with my, I'm playing with the round. I'm, going with 14 grains of powder and 15 grains just to see. Is there a lot of experimentation that goes into this?
Yeah, there can be. I think that reloading is just like a lot of things. You can make it as simple or as complex as you're really looking for, right? So there are some basic safety things that you have to know. There are some basic reloading concepts that you have to understand, right? You gotta use the right powder for the right caliber that you're shooting. You have to use the right bullet in the right caliber. Those are pretty basic things, right? Yeah. Once you get past that, it can be as simple or it can be as complex as you'd like. Luke, you might talk about, there's a lot of videos out there about how to measure the jump to your lands, right? So
yes,
you can make it incredibly complex, and there's a lot of different theories out there, and people have a lot of different approaches to measuring different things that they think are really, really important to find the node of the caliber that you're shooting. I think you can make it really, really complex, but at its basic heart, it can be fairly simple. My dad taught me how to reload, not when I was 12, but when I was within 18. So I waited a little bit later in life, I guess, but I kind of have the approach that my dad taught me. But then over the last, 10 years or so, I tried to experiment and learn a lot more on my own. So I probably know a lot more about reloading now than my dad did, because I play around a lot more than he did. And that's okay.
Yeah. And I don't know. And okay, real quick, we're going to take a real quick break. We're going to listen to some messages from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Benelli, are you looking for a new hunting rifle for the field? Well, I've been hunting a little bit with the Benelli Lupo, and I'm going to tell you right now, this gun is legit, and it screams Italian design and Italian performance. The Benelli Lupo bolt-action rifle is developed for the harshest climates, features sub-MOA accuracy and advanced ergonomics. Okay, MOA accuracy shouldn't be a selling point right now because this gun screams accuracy. It's highly accurate, and a lot of guns are accurate these days, but I'm telling you, this one is consistent. That's what we should be talking about. But to learn more, visit BenelliUSA.com. Are you ready to hit the range and really haven't found much ammo, so you're limited to 1 or 2 boxes? It's kind of depressing, especially if you need some 223 or 6.5 Grendel or 17 HMR. Well, Brownells has you covered. If you visit brownells.com/ammunition, you're going to find a wide variety of popular calibers and little known calibers that you don't even know about. So if you're looking for your next hunting partner and your next range ammunition? Visit brownells.com/ammunition. Okay, we're talking with Aaron and Luke from Hodgdon Powders, and we're talking about developing loads for your 6.5 Creedmoor and your other traditional hunting calibers. Now, I'm going to ask Luke, because he's been reloading since he was 12, for a late onset reloader like myself. How much playing around would you recommend? Or would you recommend, like, hey, start basic? Like, give me some advice on that end of it, because I think a lot of our listeners, and especially during this time of craziness, especially without being able to find ammunition readily available, guys that are looking into reloading, like, what should they expect and do from that point?
Okay. The important thing is, find this information for your load and always just start low. A starting load is precisely that. It is a starting load. You're using possibly different brass, different primers, different bullets, different rifle. So start low, work up. The general rule of thumb is to work up in 1% increments of whatever the maximum load would be. So if you're shooting a powder in your gun and the load calls for the max is 50 grains, work up half of a grain at a time. Right.
Okay. So I mean, start basic, like start small and then start to work up. So how do you, when guys are in here and they're looking at, the differences between like Superform or 4350, like, how do you distinguish those on the expected results?
Some of it is trial and error. What works well in one gun may not necessarily work well in another. And to an extent, it can be a matter of experimenting.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons there are so many powders out there. It'd be great, it'd be very simple to just have 10 that does everything.
Right. So it's almost a process of elimination. Okay, my gun really likes this combination, and it kind of ate, a Hornady bullet rather than a burger or whatever with this powder. So it's a process of elimination.
There is some good information out there. A lot of cartridges will have just known powders that work well in them.
Yeah.
This 6.5 Creed, you go with the stay ball, the 4350, your chance of success is very high.
Okay.
So, and we're not going to recommend on that reloading data center, when you look at the powders, we're not going to recommend powders that don't fit or work well. If we don't think they're going to offer acceptable results, we simply aren't going to list data for them.
So that's a great, like, I didn't even think about it. What processes do you guys at Hodgdon go through to kind of narrow down what works for kind of almost everything?
It kind of comes down to those burn speeds. Exactly. That's kind of how it works. A cartridge is going to have just a certain burn speed range that it will work with.
And then we've worked over the years, we kind of establish a standard for every caliber. So we shoot, this brass, these primers, and then we try a whole host of bullets in them with the powders that we think are going to work for that particular cartridge. So, the process that we're kind of describing is similar to the process that our ballistics lab, we have technicians in two different ballistics labs at Hodgdon. We have a facility in Kansas and a facility in Montana that are set up exactly the same equipment, same process. And we shoot all of our data through, those two ballistics labs. And we follow kind of the same process there as we're describing for the individual who really wants to get into reloading.
Really?
We do a lot of trial and error. We have facilities right there. Our facility in Montana, we can shoot out to 1,000 yards. And we're frequently out there making sure that the load doesn't just work in the lab, it also works in field conditions as well.
Right. It's all practical use stuff. Like you're actually utilizing it and testing it out and putting it through the chrono and everything else. And you guys are working with all different kind of guns too, because you talked about the gas guns. I mean, why, if it works better than that, you guys are monitoring that as well?
Yeah, we actually don't use firearms for our testing. We have test barrels made to a certain specific standard. And so all of our data that we're shooting, because we can shoot it through a machine that can replicate situations exactly to the same tolerances every time, we just use test barrels.
Okay.
Now, that being said, if we're going to go outside and shoot it, then somebody's bringing a gun, or we have a gun in the lab that we can use. So we do a lot of shooting outside of that, but most of the data that we're test firing, almost, I would think over 99% of that is shot through a test barrel so that we can make sure we can replicate those situations again.
Yeah, it's load development to me. And again, I'm in the infancy. Like I'm basically starting out at Luke's like 12-year-old, like self right now. What advice would you give newcomers to this? Like, what are some of the dangers that they need to watch out for? Maybe like 3 things that are common mistakes that they can overcome when developing like their next hunting load.
Okay. The most important piece of reloading equipment that you will buy is a scale.
Absolutely.
Preferably buy 2. Then you can double check your scale to make sure that it truly is telling you what it's telling you.
There sounds like there's a story there.
Not in particular. Nothing I really ran across, but we see it on the phone calls and emails and that sort of thing, regularly. But it is something that you do have to keep an eye on. And, you know, there are a lot of electronic scales on the market of all different types of price range and quality. But electronics are electronics. So there's possibilities that they may be off. Having some kind of a check weight or a second scale around really is beneficial.
Okay.
I don't load anything without double checking one scale versus the other. I do it. I use 2 scales every time I reload.
Okay.
And I think another tip would be, I think Luke referenced this before. You always start at the starting load. The starting load is the starting load for a reason.
Right.
I hear a lot of guys who say, well, you know, I started at the max. No. You want to start at the start. Don't start at the max.
They just
and make sure that you're weighing your charges. If you're not getting that right, that will cause you problems.
Okay.
There's a lot of great information and a lot of reloading manuals in the front section, covering just general basics. I would recommend, you know, besides the scale, your second most important thing is having the correct data. And of course, that's available on our website. But there's a lot of good written information in the front of some of those books. And that'll cover basic things like setting dies, potential problems. You know, there are things that are common issues people can have. Setting dies incorrectly, you know, that sort of thing is covered usually in the instructions that come with the dies. So, you know, read them, educate yourself. Don't skip over those parts.
No. Oh, good
it's
information.
Simple, right? I think a lot of guys are going to look at a progressive press and think, you know, I can really crank out more ammo. You know, most of us started on a single stage. We're big fans of single stages, right? I still load on the same rock chucker that I started on, let's say, a long time ago, right? And I use it for a reason.
That's what I'm starting out on. I'm starting out on a Frankfurt Arsenal, like single stage press. Like that, I don't need. That's like seems like a lot for me to try to manage.
Sure.
As a beginner, and I just don't think that's fair to myself to understand. Like reloading one round is my first goal. I guess that's the number one goal. And let me get to the like big progressive presses later on in life.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, for somebody new starting out, you're going to have to get comfortable with just doing a lot of experimentation, right? You're going to try a lot of different things in your loads, and you're going to need to shoot an awful lot. And so that means you're probably going to need some sort of good shooting facility, you know, either a public range or a private range fairly close to your house. I'm pretty fortunate that I have one about 15 minutes from my house. And truth be told, I should be there a lot more than I am. You know, especially with playing around with new guns, you got to get them dialed in. And, you know, people think that they can go and just pull out the data, you know, from an app and then they're going to have all the dope that you need. Well, that's just the starting point. You got to shoot your own gun to figure out what your own dope looks like.
Right.
I just got back from a trip in Montana. I was pretty fortunate to draw both an elk and a muley tag in Montana this year.
Please tell me you were successful.
I was successful on both. So yeah, it was a good trip, and I shot my elk. I probably made the best shot of my life on a game animal with my elk. We got within 300 to 500 yards, and I wasn't getting any closer than that.
Yeah. And was it wide open territory, or just terrain wouldn't allow it?
Terrain wouldn't allow it. So we saw them from 3 miles away. We got to within 1,500 yards, and then we had to back off, swing around, and take a series of draws. And the last 200 yards, we belly crawled. So we got on a little bit of a rise where we could kind of see down into the herd. There was, I'm going to say, probably 100 head of elk there. And we watched them for about 20 minutes. We had the wind in our face. Everything was good, but they started getting hinky after about 20 minutes. And I could see the big herd bull in the distance, but he never got closer than 640. And I had shot my gun. I was shooting a .338 Win Mag that my dad had given me. I had shot it enough at 400. I knew how it performed. And an elk stood up, a bull stood up, a little 5x5 stood up at about 396, according to my guide. And I had dope for 400, so I took the shot and went straight down.
Thank goodness you had that.
Yeah, the bull performed well. My dope was good. So I felt good about that shot, right? That's a shot. If you shot enough, you know how to make that shot. He had his head down feeding. I never saw his head until I walked up on him when he was laying on the ground. My guide had seen him, but where he was, his head was kind of blocked from me.
Oh, yeah.
So my guide identified the animal. He was the only one there. Keeping in mind your 4 rules of gun safety, I knew exactly where he was and what was behind him. And so I took that shot, and that was a cool experience. At 400 yards, that's probably the best shot I've made on an animal like that. So yeah, that was good. That was a good hunt.
And you got a mule deer too, right?
I did. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to catch that story on the other side. We're going to take another quick break right here. And then we're going to jump back in. We're going to hear the story of Aaron's mule deer.
Timney Triggers. The newest trigger from Timney Triggers is a top customer request. So that means, this whole thing means that Timney Triggers is listening to you. So if you have a trigger that you have a need for, I would definitely reach out to Timney Triggers, because they are launching a dedicated CZ Model 457 rimfire trigger. The CZ 457 trigger is adjustable for pull weight and over travel. It's machined using state-of-the-art technology and features Timney's new sear engagement adjustment lock design for a user-friendly experience. Just what you need. So visit timneytriggers.com to learn more about the CZ Model 457 rimfire and see what they might create for you next. And Smith & Wesson. You know, Smith & Wesson has the M&P 15T2 rifle. I own a M&P 15T rifle, and I absolutely love it. But I'm going to tell you right now, the M&P 15-2 rifle is way better. It's like 2 times better. It's optimized with a slew of upgrades from the original model and customizations. It's got the M&P pistol grip with an interchangeable backstrap, which is awesome. So it fits your hand, whether you've got big hands, small hands, whatever kind of hands you got, they got a interchangeable backstrap for you. All ambi controls, which is beautiful. And it's got a flat face trigger, which I love the feel of the trigger. Very nice gun right there. And an M4E flash suppressor, making the gun very easily controllable. So visit smith-wesson.com to find more about the M&P 15-2 rifle. Hey, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but AR-15s make fantastic hunting partners. And Silencer Central will deliver a suppressor right to your door. How is that possible? It's because they figured it out. They figured all this out just for you. So if you're sitting in your easy chair watching a little Monday Night Football or Saturday college football, you can sit there and you can order maybe one of their Banish 30 suppressors. I'm waiting on mine right now. Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers. By the end of hunting seasons, it's going to get here, because it's going to be outfitted on my 6.5 Creedmoor, guaranteed. But it makes it easy to purchase online paperwork, all your fingerprints, the trust set up, everything's done on silencercentral.com. So visit silencercentral.com to learn more about how you can purchase and own a suppressor directly from your easy chair.
All right, we're back. We're talking Hodgdon Powders, and there's a mule deer story that has to be told from Aaron and Luke of Hodgdon Powders. So, Aaron, you got your elk. Awesome. So, what's the story on the mule deer?
Yeah, so I shot my elk down kind of southwest of Dillon, and then I had a mule deer tag, and so I drove up to Belt, Montana, which is just east of Great Falls, and I had some friends up there that hosted me for deer camp. And so I got into camp. Everybody else was already hunting. I got there for my kind of day one, and I went out with my buddy's son, who I've known for probably 10 years or so. Yeah. And so it's the Shear family. So if you watch Pursuit Channel, they have Shoot Straight with Chad and Marcia. Yeah. And so I got to hunt with their son Walker. And we went out, and he was showing me some of the ranches. Now, I had just been out there with my wife this summer and kind of looked at some of the ranches as we were prairie dog shooting over the summertime. And so I knew some of the ranches, was familiar, but we went to a ranch that I was not familiar with, had never been on. And the first group of the first group of mule deer that we saw was, probably 6 or 8 does, and they had a really nice buck with them. And so we saw it probably half a mile, and there was a really nice big draw running right up to them. And so Walker and I got in this draw and took a little bit of a walk and popped out behind some brush. The does saw us, but didn't spook, and it was 200 yards. And so the buck was standing there and never even knew we were there. And I got to shoot off a stick, so it was pretty easy shot.
Oh, that's easy.
So 200 yards. And now the good news was
day there, your first afternoon.
So it's just like Gilligan's Island, right? It's a 3-hour tour. Yeah. So my third hour, I have a really nice buck down. And, the bad news was we shot him. He was on the side of a draw. And as soon as I shot him, he did about a 180. I shot him through both front shoulders. Yeah. He pitched off the top of this draw and slid all the way to the bottom where the little creek was. So we had about 150-yard drag straight up the side of the draw, but then we could drive a truck right there. And
but still, you still had to drag it a ways. Like that's not easy work. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a great hunt. We had a lot of fun. That Montana scenery, for a flatlander like me who's used to the Midwest, Montana and Wyoming are two of my favorite states to hunt.
Oh yeah. Beautiful, beautiful countryside. So I have to ask what gun were you using for the mule deer?
Yeah. So for the mule deer, I used one of their guns. So Chad works for Bergara. Mm-hmm. And so I shot one of the new Bergaras in 300 Win Mag. So I've shot enough Bergaras that I know how they work. That's a really good platform. And so, that was a fun gun to shoot. So that was, 200 yards, close enough, but not too far. It was a really good hunt, and the bullet performed really well, right? He took a step, went straight down.
That's what we all hope for. And I mean, that unfortunately for me, like my hunt was not like that. Okay. My buddy, he shot one. And then I give it about 15 minutes or so, because he ran off the brush, wasn't sure where he was at. And so I was like, you want to go get yours? Okay. Yeah. Let's go get it. So we step out of, our cover, and then walked over, and I was like, hold it. I was like, in a voluntary, like a CRP field is basically what it is, just prairie grass. There was a buck and a doe, and the buck was really nice. I mean, like, this is the kind of deer, like, I will shoot 100% of the time. It's a mature, older deer. Got in position, great, easy shot. I ranged it a couple different times. It was reading 258. And my buddy, he doesn't shoot a lot. Like, this is when, like, I think when your experience with your loads and what you're shooting overcomes everything. Like, that's your standard, and what is standard. So I take a shot and I miss. And I said, I missed. I think I'm low. He goes, no, you were high. I saw the grass move. I'm like, how's that possible? I mean, I was holding exactly where my dope said to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. So I'm going to account for it. So I dial back down or dial down, and I take a shot and I hit him low. He jumps forward, still not down, send another one, exact same spot, again, low. And this time I broke his offside shoulder, still not down. So the deer heads north on the property that we don't have. And I was able to get in the truck. We ran to the truck, which, my gosh, I'm out of shape. And headed down the road to try and just keep eyes on him. That's all I want. I just need to get eyes on him, because if he beds down or something like this, prairie grass so thick. So I got into a position, had him at 100 yards. I can't take a shot, not my property, from the road. So I just watch him. Well, he kind of trails off into kind of a low-lying area. And so I'm like, he's there. The land that he stopped on is owned by the Air Force. Do you know how hard it is to get a hold of the Air Force to try to enter the property? And they're doing airdrops that day. So I'm scrambling, trying to call the U.S. Air Force and try to find out the manager, the commander of the property. And so I get a hold of someone, and he said, yes, go get your deer and then exit the property. And I'm like, great, that's awesome. And I told him, I was like, hey, he's an injured deer, so I will be carrying a gun on property. Is that okay? And I cleared it through him. We go walking out, and I had a guy a mile to the west watching, a mile west. And this all takes place in a matter of 10 minutes. So I'm walking out there. Again, it's so thick. It's just, it's never been mowed. They let it go into CRP. And the guy calls me and says, hey, I've got him. He's behind you. And I'm like, I'm looking around and I'm going, where? I never saw him. I never saw him exit the field. I would have seen it, but it's an old buck. He exits the field, hops the fence on 3 legs. He's only got 3 legs. One of them's broke, but he gets back and he's skyline headed north across our leased property. And I'm like, that's impossible. And I spent the entire week hunting for this deer. Never found him. And it crushes me. It breaks my heart. But all that to be said, trust your data.
Right.
Trust your data. And what I believe happened was my rangefinder was not picking up where he was. And actually Daniel Horner, and Ryan just told me, and he just reminded me, he gave a great range-finding tip as to go find a landmark or a brush or something behind your target, range it. Okay. And then you're locked in. So he's not beyond this range. Mm-hmm. What I did was I ranged, I guess, in front of him, and he was behind. So He was actually further out than what I was shooting, is why I was shooting low. And then I dialed down and I was shooting even lower, and he had actually come on the first shot, broke. He came a little closer. So an error on my part, and one I am that will haunt my dreams. So I guess the plan is I will get back out there after season, and my dog's got the antler finding thing down. And so I'm going to try to turn him loose, and we're going to try to hunt him up. So search is continuing, but
what kind of dog do you have?
Short hair pointer, a German short hair. He's kind of an idiot, but he knows how to find antlers. So we'll go out and we'll give it another shot in trying to find it. But it's a gut wrenching thing. And any hunter, if you hunt long enough, we were talking about this. This is my first deer that I have not recovered, and it's tearing me up. I'm losing nights of sleep over it. But it happens. And it's a disservice to the deer that I was hunting, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah. I think we've all been there. If you hunt long enough, you're going to lose a deer, but Yeah, I lost one probably 14, 15 years ago, and I think about it all the time.
See, 14 or 15 years ago. And like, what's bad is I can see my reticle on his shoulder, and I can see his reaction, and I can replay every single shot I took, and it was the wrong decision. There's a whole flurry of things that happened that I wish I could have taken back. And, hindsight, but I will remember the sight picture I had that day.
Yeah. And I think it's important when you go through those experiences, you just have to learn from them. Right.
Yeah.
And so we talked about before how you start, and for even something like shooting, if you shoot enough, you're going to develop that kind of muscle memory where exactly what happened. You're going to range enough things where that's not going to be an issue before or again, right? It happened once, but you're going to learn from it, and then you're never going to repeat that mistake. I'm sure we'll find other mistakes to repeat.
Oh yeah.
We're not going to repeat that one.
We can always find more, but there's a difference in ranging on level ground when grass is in the way and you're trying to stay low. If doing it over again, I would range. I would do a little bit of calculation. So we were 20 yards into the stalk. What I should have done, and I had perfect sight on him at an elevated position. I should have ranged there and then ranged where I wanted to get to and subtracted the two and try to at least be close to where I know, okay, if I make it to X point, he is going to be at this now, and doing little things like that and just taking your time. The problem with my hunting area is that we have roads that go right by where he was at, and we had a truck coming down the road at a creep. And so, and I don't think they saw us, which is actually another whole scary situation. But they're slowing down and looking at this deer. So now the deer's on edge.
Right.
And maybe the right choice was to not shoot. As crazy as that might sound, maybe you don't take the shot. But I don't know. It's killing me.
No, I understand that. And I'll say as well that, from experience, I'm sure you've had this happen. I'm getting ready to go out to Kansas tomorrow. The Kansas season starts on Wednesday, the rifle season here. And Hodgdon is based in Kansas. So we have a property that we hunt in central Kansas. I was out there last year and I saw the biggest buck of my life. And I saw him 3 times over a 5-day hunt. And I ended my season on the last hour of the last day, practically the last minute. I had my crosshairs on his shoulder at 130 yards. And I couldn't shoot because he was 30 feet across the property line.
Oh,
and the right call, right? No
right
question.
Call, 100%.
I'm not going to worry about it. But like I told you before, that buck that I shot and did not recover 15 years ago, I think about that shot all the time. I think about the one I didn't take last year all the time as well, right? I don't second guess. That was the right call. I'm not, absolutely got to respect private property, but I think about that shot all the time. To the best of my knowledge, nobody else got him last year.
So, hey, this is the year
I might see him this year, right? But it's something I think about all the time.
Yeah. It's the decisions we live with and we have to make that make us better hunters and better stewards of the land too, because I respect the hell out of our private landowners. And doing the right thing is always important, especially when you have new hunters or young hunters with you. I think we need to lead by example, and that's how you do it.
Yeah. And I think especially for those of us who are in the industry, you have to set the right example, right? I hear a lot of stories about people who cut corners, and I don't ever want to be the guy that cuts the corner, right? I want to do things by the book.
Yeah. We want to do that stuff right by the book. All right, Luke, where's your next hunt at? I got to know.
Iowa deer season.
Okay. So you're heading out to Iowa. That's a whole nother story. So what I'd like to do is we're going to shelve this Gun Talk Hunt podcast, but when you get back, Luke, I want to hear, because you're taking a 45-70 out. Are you doing any reloads for that?
I am.
Okay. So what I want to talk about next time we talk, I want to see a big deer and I want to know what your development load is for straight wall cartridges.
Okay.
We can make that happen.
Yeah, we're going to make it happen. Aaron, Luke, as always, you guys, thank you for joining us and thank you for the work you're doing. We cannot do this without you guys and love what you guys are producing out there.
Well, thanks for having us on. Always good to hear other people's hunting stories. So appreciate the time today.
As frustrating as they are, we love to hear the stories. But Gun Talk Hunt fans, thank you guys for joining us. Always remember, keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.